Hola y bienvenidos a una entrevista en el Ufology 2022 para código-oculto.com y el canal de YouTube a Enigma. Y como podéis ver, estoy aquí con la gran Linda Moulton-Howe. Thank you so much for being with us, Linda. So we were speaking right now of that you wanted to tell me some things you've heard, so we can begin with that.
Yes. I wonder how will the government of the United States finally announce that we're not longer terrorists, because as far as all people that I know have substantial military and aerospace understanding, we are going to get the announcement that we're not alone in the universe. And we were owed this a long time ago because that is the truth. Well, what I have heard in the last few months from people who are working in and around the James Webb Telescope, that in April of 2023, so just a few months from now, in the spring of 2023, that there is a plan to make an announcement that the James Webb Telescope has focused on a variety of planets, and that they have found at least one which the signature of what overlays that planet's atmosphere has to have been produced by living organic life forms. If that is the way they break this open in the spring of 2023, it'll be far enough away that people on Earth will not feel fear. But you will hear, "I told you so," around the world. We are not alone in a universe that has 3 trillion galaxies. And we're only in one galaxy. And this one galaxy has us and other planets with life. There's no question about it. So if one galaxy has solar systems with life, 3 trillion meaning this universe is filled with conscious.
So, throughout your exceptional career, you've had access to a lot of information. But what is the most important bit every human being should know? I mean, people who normally don't consider these issues we normally deal with.
The most important thing that we should know are what evidence has already been established of something in an extraterrestrial category interacting with our planet. In the 20th century, for me, it would be animal mutilations that I began investigating when I was director of special projects at the CBS TV station in Denver, Colorado. And I still can remember going to see a sheriff in northern Colorado, and he had over 200 case studies with photographs, with veterinarian necropsies about animal mutilations in which the conclusions were the excisions had been done with heat, and that the heat would explain why there was no blood, but what would explain that a 1,700-pound animal could be found on dry dust ground without a single track around the body of the dead and mutilated animal. And that is why it was law enforcement in the United States and Canada, but going all the way back to the end of the 50s to the early 1960s, that's when the phenomenon began being reported. And they had ranchers that would report that they saw a round light in the sky, saw a beam come down into the pasture. And I interviewed some ranchers who said they either saw a cow being pulled up into the beam all the way up to the circle of light, and they were so scared that they went back to their house. They didn't call a sheriff, they didn't call anyone, they were scared. In the morning, they would go back out after the sun was up, and exactly where they saw the cow go up in the beam of light into the round, here was the cow in the pasture, ear missing, eye missing, tongue missing, jaw flesh, genitals, and rectum poured out. No blood, no fluid, and no tracks on the ground. The beam of light carrying the animal up and down would explain how mutilated animals would be found with no tracks. And that's evidentiary. That is material that would hold up in a court of law. That's why I put it at the top of the list. These are facts backed up by necropsy reports, sheriff's offense reports, and I've seen hundreds. Now, you would think that you could take those reports to the New York Times or the BBC, and they would read it, and they would say, well, this doesn't sound like humans could do this. And if humans are not doing this around the world, then what is? This goes back to the 50s. We're now at 2022, soon to be 2023. And we still have arguments within the government of the United States and other countries about whether UFOs are real. And yet, even in just animal mutilations, the evidence is everywhere in the reports. And when I did A Strange Harvest, began working on it in September of 1979, and the broadcast was in May 25th, 1980. It was a 90-minute special in CBS. It was the highest rated program ever on that station then and now. And after it was over, the number of letters, this was not the computer age, this is when we had typewriters and we had faxes and we had mail rooms. And the mailroom started bringing to me bags, hundreds of letters that were coming from around the world. And the broadcast had been in Denver, Colorado, and the state of Colorado. But the word had spread to the world that here was this documentary about extraterrestrials mutilating bloodlessly animals. And all this mail came in. And the mail would have drawings and sketches. And this happened to my animal in Australia, in Germany. It was all around the world. And that was when I knew, in May of 1980. It took me 9 months to produce that documentary, Strange Harvest. And I was only scratching the surface. And from that point on, from May of 1980 to this day, as you and I sit here in 2022 in Barcelona, it's 43 years later. And in those 43 years, I have talked with people who work in aerospace, who have been executives in companies, military people with high ranks, engineers, doctors, scientists, who have all told me what Sheriff Tex Graves told me back in 1980 when I was working on the documentary. Linda, the perpetrators of these bloodless, trackless animal mutilations are creatures from outer space. That was the answer then. That is the true answer today in 2022. Mutilations continue to go on in many places of the planet. And what amazes me is that we are now at 8 billion people on Earth. And those 8 billion people evolving over the last 45,000 years have never been told the truth that we are not alone in this universe. And that extraterrestrial biological entities in solar systems, in the Milky Way galaxy and beyond, have been involved with projects on our planet for millions of years. And I have heard from a man who retired from the Defense Intelligence Agency, who told me in December of 1991, Linda, our government in the United States has proved that 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations have been competing and fighting with each other over territorial control of Earth for at least 270 million years. 270 million years compared to when the dinosaurs were taken out by an asteroid. That was 65 million years ago. So this man working for the Defense Intelligence Agency was letting me know that he and his colleagues at the DIA knew that 270 million years ago, 3 civilizations were fighting over Earth, and they fight over Earth today.
Did this person ever tell you how did they get this information? How do they know?
What is the difference between facts and misinformation? What I have learned, if you are interviewing law enforcement or police, they are trained in their duty for the most part that they're never going to lie to a reporter. So you begin to listen for words like, the deputy saw a beam of light coming from something in the sky into the pasture where we found his animal. That is a trigger for me because I have interviewed sheriffs, I have interviewed ranchers who have seen beams of light carry animals up and down. Brazil alone, Peru, Argentina, they have hundreds and hundreds of reports where men out fishing on a lake saw something that was round, comes, puts the beam down into the lake, they see some animal go up in the beam. That type of report has been global for a very long time. And what does it mean? That there is a technology that comes without wings, is usually round or triangular or wedge shaped, that can be in the sky completely still, not one motion, and put beams of light down to the ground in which human eyewitnesses see things that go up into the beam or come down. That establishes a technology that has the ability to lift a lot of weight. Bulls can weigh 2,000, 2,200 pounds. And so when somebody says that they don't believe that animal mutilations are occurring because it would be stupid, it would take all of this, why would it happen? And you hear these kinds of, they're just meaningless arguments. On the other side, though, of why would this tissue and these fluids be taken from animals around the planet for at least since the late 1950s are the first reports I had. And Australia was right there in the beginning of all the reports of animal mutilations along with North America, England and France and all over. You come to where we are today in 2022, and what I have been exposed to are people who have been surgeons, veterinarians, astronomers, aerospace engineers, and they all accept hard data that they have received, that this is an alien presence that is collecting tissue and fluids from animals for two reasons. Sustenance would be food. Genetic manipulation. And that those are the two categories that non-humans interact with our planet, mutilating animals and collecting fluids and tissue for sustenance and genetic manipulation. Who is it that needs the sustenance? And what is the creation of the genetic manipulation? You get there, and then the whole landscape of questions and answers broadens to all of the people around this planet who are in the human abduction syndrome. And there are, I believe, that there's one estimate in the United States that as many as 30 million people on the planet may have been abducted or are related in some way to abductions. It's an 8 billion person planet, but 30 million still is a lot. And even if evidentiary material from doctors, scientists are accumulated in all of this, what we're lacking is a global statement by leaders of various nations coming together and just simply saying, we are sorry that we have lied to you or not told you the truth for many decades. But here are the reasons why. We did not want panic. We had problems in between countries and wars. And our decision was that it was in the interest of public safety that we not talk about animal mutilations, human abductions, and the presence of extraterrestrial biological entities on this planet. And my response to that has always been, if we're on a planet where every single country involving 8 billion people have never told the truth, that the universe is teeming with consciousness, and some of it is here, and some of it may be trying to help Earth and us, and some of it may not. For humans to not be told the truth, to me, is abuse. So let's hope that right now we're on the cusp, that by the spring of 2023, let's hope that they use the James Webb Telescope for the sun instrument and they finally break open that headline that should go in every country, everywhere. We are not alone in this universe. From that point on, I think the Earth would get better, because then I think that humanity as a whole would feel almost stupid to each other if they continue petty racial and other fighting when there may be issues in this particular galaxy that we better learn about as fast as possible and grow. That's why I do the work I do. I am praying we're going to have that headline in the spring of 2023, or at the latest by the fall of 2023. Either way, this coming new year, it could finally, after eons, be the truth.
I really do hope you're right. But before we leave the issue on the cattle, which mutilations, I wanted to ask you, because normally we assume those mutilations are taking place on the ground. But I've seen some cases, especially Judy Doherty's case.
Yes.
It happened on in a kind of a ship. But do you know of any other similar cases? It happens on ships.
MyEarthFiles.com website that I've been doing since 1999. It has now, I think it's close to 3,000 reports. And I divide them into environment, science, and real X-Files. And in real X-Files, I think I have something like 500 or 600 reports just having to do with abductions and animal mutilations from the people, from firsthand with audio. And their interviews are in my earthfiles.com website. And there was a case in which 2 men in their early 20s, they were out in Colorado. They had picked a campsite. They were going to climb a mountain. They were in their sleeping bags, and a glowing craft comes down in the sky near where they are.
That's very lovely.
Well,
is it?
No, but since people are beginning to say, oh, that's like this case.
Yes.
There's so many cases. In this particular one, the man lying in this sleeping bag wakes up and sees this man is rising in a beam of light. He's totally asleep. So his friend, in amazement, but can't talk. He's paralyzed. He sees his friend like he's supposed to see, so he can report later. And watches his friend go up, and the next thing he knows, they're both in this craft. And this was a situation where what comes in front of both of them are reptilians. They describe them not as alligators, but as lizards. And the lizard types that stand up are a part of the phenomena, even though most people don't realize. And the lizards communicated to them that they were scientists and that they were working on something having to do with the tissue and fluid. Both men saw the lizards. Both men said that they took them and showed them how they extracted blood and tissue from the animals that they took. And it was a room where it showed this equipment. The animal was hooked up to tubes, blood was coming out, and it was all very medical and very scientific. And the non-humans were trying to explain to them, this is necessary for us. And we are going to take from you semen as part of this grand experiment, that whatever they're doing. And when those two men talk to me about what had happened, and they are trying to tell me as honestly as they can what they saw, what happened. If it were an isolated case, I wouldn't be telling you, I wouldn't be reporting. I'm a professional investigative reporter. I don't do something on one case and generalize. In 43 years, I have talked with so many men and women who have had some experience in a pasture, seeing beings, finding themselves on a craft, having telepathic discussions about, we use this for sustenance, we use this for genetic, and it's a theme. And we humans should be told the whole truth about what does our government know? Why does this go on? And then people say, well, if they're killing animals, what if we're next? I don't personally know. I would tell you if I did. I do not personally know of a single ranch farm family that I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. I don't know any that had an intrusion, that anything happened to a human. The focus is on the animals. Now, if we just take this much of this interview and say, in 2022, going into 2023, if we could be told the truth using the James Webb Telescope perhaps as the vehicle, we're not alone in this universe. The other side of that sentence should not be panic. It should be people saying, I told you so. I knew, right? People are going to say, I told you, I know we're not alone. There are UFOs and there are animal mutilations. But we are an 8 billion person planet. That's a lot of people on a planet. And the number of people who would have been exposed in a personal way to animal mutilations would be few compared to 8 billion. But enough for me to have, in the last 43 years, I have done documentaries, books, conferences, radio, television, about evidence. And so, in a funny, strange way, we are at the cusp of finally being told a huge truth. And the huge truth will then explain these other phenomena. Until that happens, until we have that headline of all press conferences of all centuries, we're not alone in this universe. Until that happens, we're on a planet where the lie, where the ability to manipulate the truth is in the hands of governments and power brokers. And I would rather see humanity as a population be told the truth. Know it is the truth, not live in fear of the truth, but that the whole world would turn on a dime to a completely different relationship. Humanity is worth fighting. I believe that to my core. And when I say that, we fight each other. We kill each other. We discredit each other on something as silly as the color of skin. If we were confronted with the reality of standing up lizards, standing up reptilians, tall whites, tall blues, and the list goes on of a variety, maybe we would look at every human that we saw with a whole new, I love you, fellow being. I do not want to kill you. I do not want to hurt you. And that Earth might turn around if we could just get this headline.
Okay, on a different note, I wanted to know, because I imagine that with everything you had to go through during your career, and with all the whistleblowers you have spoken with, at this point, I really feel things may surprise you, but during your career, what information you learned that really shocked you?
That's a really good question. Shock. I think that the most honest answer that I can give you includes a tremendous number of testimonies from a lot of people who have encountered or been introduced to beings that communicate with them, that all of our Mesopotamian history, the Anunnaki, the Sumerian, and the Egyptian, and Etruscan, they were ETs.
Okay.
And the pyramid structures are machines. And they will generate energy. And that if we knew the whole truth about who the Mesopotamians were, we would be being introduced to extraterrestrials from another part of the galaxy. I believe today that that is absolutely true. But I remember the shock of having that information presented to me, and then having to read a lot. And when you go into some of the books by the work of somebody like Zecharia Sitchin on translation, or other people who are academics even, Budge was this great and famous archaeologist who did the best reporting on Mesopotamia. And he also implied that there were things that he kept discovering, languages he kept discovering, as if it were some other foreign nation. And they didn't have the lens to look at it as ET. Robert Temple did a brilliant book on the Sirius, the star Sirius, and the more tribes in Africa, in which language, knowledge about Sirius A and B were known to a small African tribe. And he raised the question, how is this possible? And Robert Temple contributed then evidence that would suggest that the African tribe was visited by extraterrestrials from the Sirius system, that it wasn't some aberration, and that this may have happened in many places on the earth, but long, long ago. And then come back full circle to the Defense Intelligence Agency analyst who told me in December 1999, our government has proved that 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations have been in conflict with each other on this planet for at least 270 million years.
I wonder what that proof is. For that long ago, how do they know that?
I asked.
And what was the answer?
This was the answer. If I told you,
Oh,
you and I both would be in danger.
okay.
Quote unquote. And that was 1999. This is 2022.
Okay, yeah, I would stop asking questions after that. Okay.
No, I never stopped asking questions. But in terms of making sure that every time I have reported any of those discussions, I have named the agency. I have never, ever disclosed the person and their real name. And that when I have had multiple sources say, yes, this is true, I have reported that also. So it has not been singular, but he was the first,
Okay.
1999.
And as far as you know, how many alien races have been in contact with us that you're aware of, as I said? And if they are all the same, from our same universe?
I have been told that there are 168 civilizations in this particular small arm of the Milky Way galaxy where our solar system is, and our government knows about the 168 civilizations. I've also been told that our Space Force, we had an active Space Force formed and operating 3 years after Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. That was 1969 July, 3 years later, 1972. In 1972, we had Space Force that were working with the tall Nordics and the tall whites, going on aircraft and being introduced to other solar systems. I have been told by an executive, now retired, of a very large aerospace company. He said, "Linda, I have heard you on your Earth Files YouTube channel. You are reporting a lot of truth, and I want to give you another fact." He said, "Our government, working with the tall whites and the tall Nordics, we have logged 28 different solar systems now in this arm, which is an addition, meaning we have been there, humans from Earth, with the help of ETs, and we have been logging the physical characteristics, the science, the civilizations on 28. The other figure, 168 civilizations, comes from other sources that are not like military going with tall whites and tall Nordics on craft to investigate solar systems. So there's different tracks of information. Either way, no matter whether it's military operations, Space Force, or it is science and medical operations that are logging in 2022 September, I can tell you with what I feel is some confidence that our government already has space forces that are in other solar systems and in other galaxies. And we deserve to see what they see in photographs, videotapes. We deserve to know what is out there. And once that process starts, how could humans on Earth kill each other?
Yeah, right. And another thing I want to know is if you ever had any problems, so to speak, for speaking about these issues in public, and if anyone has tried to silence you or something.
The answer is yes to both of those questions, but not in a physical kill you, slap you down, shoot you. But these are the areas that have really happened. In 1983, in March, I signed a contract in New York City with Home Box Office to produce a film for HBO that would be called UFOs, the ET Factor. And they signed that contract with me because they had seen my documentary, A Strange Harvest, which received an Emmy. And I have the contract. I have military people in New Mexico that I'm set up with meetings to talk about UFOs and ETs. And those meetings take place, and immediately, my meeting in New York was the spring equinox of 1983. By April 9th, 1983, I was at Kirtland Air Force Base in a meeting with an AFOSI agent who presented me with a document from a drawer and said, "You may read this, you cannot take notes." And it was several pages long. And on one of the pages it said, this is a direct quote I have never forgotten, "These extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapiens." I'm in a Kirtland Air Force Base, Office of Special Investigations, classified office. I'm handed this document to read in the context of my producing a documentary for Home Box Office. On the last page, in addition to that quote that I just gave you, it said, all questions and mysteries about the origin of Homo sapien on Earth have been answered, and this project is closed. Quote, close quote. And I read those words over and over and over, sitting in front of this man behind the desk. And it was the moment, if I said, of all the things that have ever happened, in everything that I've done in the last 43 years, the sentence having to do with extraterrestrial biological entities manipulating DNA to create Homo sapiens, and the last sentence, all questions and mysteries about the evolution of Homo sapiens on this planet in this project. Everything that I have done since that day of April 1983 has been to answer all the questions that I have about those two sentences in a document that was handed to me in a military setting in the context of my doing an HBO documentary. They are today, to me, as we talk in September of 2022, absolutely true statements. And the deeper we go in the discovery of what we are as genetically created, manipulated from other DNA, that there are 5 races on this planet because extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA to create a laboratory experiment on Earth. But the experiment, Homo sapiens, has never been told the truth. And that's why I do the work I do.
I think that would qualify also as quite shocking information to be able to see it written on an official paper like this. And well, a couple of questions left, okay? Of all the things you've been able to study, I kind of want to know which is your favorite mystery / perhaps abduction case or something like that.
Oh, wow. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, quite literally. I've estimated conservatively that I've interviewed at least 3,000 people in the abduction syndrome. And that would be over 43 years, at least 3,000. And I guess if you think about what do I feel at this moment as you ask that question? The vast majority of people who have been abducted, in all those interviews that I've done and recorded, the subject that they bring up to me is that somehow the extraterrestrial biological entities communicated to them that the most important part of being a Homo sapiens sapien is the soul.
Okay.
And that so many humans do not even take the soul seriously.
Linda Moulton-Howe's case, perhaps.
And if we understood that the whole reason for our creation by some intelligence that is able to manipulate on planetary surfaces all kinds of lab experiments, that somehow either it was their intention or it just happened, that the Homo sapiens sapien manipulation from mixing up DNA in primates is a special soul, and that the soul itself is not poetry. It's not something that is phantasmagorical. That if we knew the truth, that the soul is a quantum energy packet. It has been designed to gather information through infinity and release that information to a divine field. And that in that process, reincarnation has been described by ETs to humans as reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of this universe. As if the whole reason for this universe to exist has to do with the recycling of souls, what they gather, and what information goes back to a larger field. If you assume that's true, The unexpected irony is that in the year 2022, of 8 billion human beings, maybe a small percentage would agree that their soul was the most important part. Not many would say that. Not many would believe it. So are we an experiment that is completely unconscious of why we even came into existence? And yet the beings that put us into existence find our souls to be so valuable that they want access. And there, to me, that is the ultimate truth. Every one of us on the planet needs to appeal to our governments to tell us the truth about other life and who we consider to be friendly, neutral, and hostile, which is the title of my talk on Sunday.
Anything you want to advance on that?
You have to come and watch and listen.
Course
you
I
can
will.
ask me questions after.
All right. This thing about the souls, it reminded me, was it Linda Porter's case? She saw like kind of a soul being extracted from a man's body and being placed in a cloned body. Does it have anything to do with all these things we are discussing right now?
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. Linda Porter is one of the most important cases, and I put her illustrations because she was really, really talented with being able to show what it was that she saw. And Linda Porter's case is not alone. In my book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness, there's this whole huge 106-page chapter. And Linda Porter is one, but there are several, and they all, half a dozen people, draw the same thing. Bodies in tubes, the understanding that can be a transfer of the soul energy from a body that is dying or allowed to die into a new cloned body, and that the gray beings and the praying mantis beings that seem to be over in charge of those processes communicate to the dying or about to die human. It is vital, and they use the word over and over, vital. It is vital that your soul and your body container remain connected together for a period of time that we must create, because you're going to die because you had rheumatic fever and your heart is going to give out. They tell each person, you are going to die too early for what we know about your soul and your body. It is provocative information. The 106-page, I probably get more questions about that big chapter than anything else. But I don't have definitive answers, and neither did Linda Porter or Donald Rose or any of the others, Erewhon. But I suggest that there is an insight into the truth about why they are interacting with our planet is in that chapter. And it reinforces what I said, that our soul is supposed to be the most important part of our being humans on Earth. And yet, we 8 billion people are not celebrating the existence of their souls on a daily basis. What would happen if we did?
Amazing. So to wrap this up, basically, are you working on anything right now? What are your next projects?
I am working on a new book. I am getting ready to go back and do a live return after the August break of what I think is going to be a fascinating new live hour on my Earth Files YouTube channel, which will involve some of the material that we have done on this trip to Barcelona. I have a case of a man who was working in the Air Force who, with others, with witnesses, has a black, solid black, round, perfectly round UFO that comes over them, and they can estimate the size and it's between 800 and 1,000 feet in diameter and up only 500 to 800 feet above military people who are standing there, and they don't know what to do. And when they try to find out and get information from offices, they can't get a hold of anybody, whatever this is doing. And then it does all kinds of remarkable motions, goes from here, flips itself up like this huge thing, okay, so all of these things. And then the next day, they are called in by the commander of the military unit. And they are told in no uncertain terms, you are never to discuss this. And these are the words that you say or don't say. And when they argue, and they say that you're telling me that I signed a non-disclosure agreement and signing my name and date, and this is a lie. And that the man in charge, with his voice rising, with curse words, tells them to effing get, and that it's being ordered. If you don't sign this non-disclosure agreement that you know is a lie, if you don't sign it, I will make sure that you and your family don't survive. And so threats like this that I've heard before, it must stop. There cannot be. And that is what Chris Mellon at the press conference here, why we're all interested in, is our government in the United States finally going to address the issue of non-disclosure agreements, take terrible punishments off, and will people then start telling more and more honestly to the public? I don't know what the answer is to that yet, but I do know that lots of people in the military have been threatened up the kazoo because they reported a UFO, and that has to stop.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. I feel so honored of being able to speak to you.
Well, thank you. We need reporters reporting the truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.